This is episode 380 of the Rio Grande Foundation's Tipping Point, New Mexico. I'm Paul Gessing, president of the Rio Grande Foundation, New Mexico's free market think tank. You can find out more about the foundation at riograndefoundation.org. I am very pleased to be joined this week by Stefani Lord. She is a state representative in her second term in Santa Fe, representing the East Mountains around Albuquerque. Welcome to Tipping Point, New Mexico, Stefani.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. I greatly appreciate this.
Well, thanks for your service in Santa Fe and putting up with a lot of nonsense up there. Just being an all-around good person and good voter, especially when it comes to issues of limited government. I'll just make a plug for our Freedom Index. You can find that out at riograndefoundation.org. It's really at the top of the page. And Stefani is among the very best members of the legislature in terms of her votes. And that was also the case, as I recall, last year. And, you're just a voice for limited government and individual liberty. But before we get in too deep to the legislative session, when I first met you, I'm 6'3", and I was a little bit intimidated. And that's neither here nor there, except for the fact that you stick out a little bit in Santa Fe, not just ideologically, but just who you are. And tell us about who you are and what made you decide to get into this whole mess called New Mexico politics.
Oh my gosh, we can blame Senator Schmades for that. Actually, he asked me. I started as an activist, and that's where I met a lot of the people was being an activist, and I specifically started pro-gun women. And then Greg decided that he was going to move up to the Senate. And he asked me one time, and I said, oh, absolutely not. No, thank you. He asked me a second time. I said, absolutely not. And they said, well, there's 10 days left if you don't run. I guess the Democrat wins. I'm like, argh. So I actually threw my hat in the ring. He saw something that nobody else did. I'll just be very honest. I think there was quite a few people that were worried about me coming up to the Roundhouse. I think they didn't know if I had the expertise, I was going to be able to do what I could do. They thought I was a one-issue person. Turns out I know a lot of stuff about a lot of things. So, yeah, it worked out great. I'm actually glad that Greg did it. I did kind of rib him yesterday at Ribs about that. but I'm glad he did. He saw something, and he put me into a good position.
Well, great. I'm glad that you're happy there. I'm sure you suffered some sleepless nights, not by choice, but because of that being the legislative process. So your issue when you got to Santa Fe was the gun rights issue. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, when I first started it was a lot of the gun rights issue, but I also knew going into this, I had to learn a lot. So I had to learn very quickly. So what I did is I started gathering experts. Like I have a team of law enforcement officers. I have some tax people. I have some CPA. I have people I can reach out to, say, help me dissect this bill. Because there's no way that we can know 100% about every single one of these crazy bills that come through. And the budget, I forgot to bring that one in, the budget bill. I mean, that thing was ginormous. And then they changed it at the last minute. They threw in $10 million for charging stations. So, I mean, you have to do your due diligence on this stuff. So I surrounded myself with experts. I asked people who had been there in the legislature for a long time to help me with stuff. And it's a learn as you go process. But man, I have really learned a lot about the state, and there's a lot of things we need to change.
No doubt about that, and we can talk about a few of those items here. But let's talk about the session, and let's start off with, I like to talk, I use the term the dogs that don't bark, the things that don't happen in the legislature, because it's sometimes the biggest thing that happens is what doesn't happen. And there were no gun bills that passed, as I understand it.
So I'm not real good about going, look what Stefani did, but I'm learning because on this one, I'm extremely proud that I killed a gun bill.
Okay.
I literally killed a gun bill. It was HB, it was a magazine capacity bill. I actually have it written down because I knew I'd forget. It was the 156. They were going to call anything over 15 rounds a large capacity magazine. Well, there are plenty of guns that come right off the shelf that have like a Glock 17 is 17 rounds. So the beautiful thing is that Representative Roybal Caballero, who may or may not live in New Mexico, she brought forward the bill and she knew nothing about it. So I was able to hammer her on that for about 25 minutes. And then luckily Pettigrew immediately said, move to table. And every single Democrat voted yes to table that bill. It was a bad bill. I think they knew it. It's an election year, so we were able to get away with a little bit more than we had before. Also, the gun safe storage bill that would have made any parent, if the child touches a gun, into a felon. Or even if they have access, possibility of access would have been a felon. And then HB 68 was the bill where they had thrown in, if you were in 1,000 feet of a gun zone, school zone, and if you were under the age of 19 and you touched a gun, you were a felon. And we know how many rural kids have to have access to guns in case there's animals that come and they need to shoot the animal that's about to kill their livestock. But that would have made them felons. So those three. Well, the 2 died and 1 was amended.
Nice. Well, that's by itself an important accomplishment, because I know guns have been a very important topic of conversation in Santa Fe in recent years.
And in rural New Mexico. Here's the thing. When I go to gun shows, because I do have tattoos, that's the other thing that makes me stick out. I think I'm the first full-sleeve tattooed representative. I don't know if where that gets me anything, but...
Well, you can, there was an effort to do a memorial for Bow Tie Day. You can have Tattoo Day in the legislature.
And everybody gets a free tattoo in the back. That'd be going on in the background.
There you go.
But yeah, so it was just very interesting this year with being able to kill those bills. So, but when I go out into the rural area, what I hear the most of is Hispanic Democrats come up and talk to me because they kind of assume I'm a Dem because of the tattoos. And then they talk to me and they realize I'm not. And then we just talk about conservative values. And we all have very moderate beliefs that we have in common. And one of those is gun rights. They are not on board with any of this gun stuff. So I keep standing up for their voice.
Excellent. Well, let's talk about one more dog that didn't bark, so to speak, and that was the limits on the governor's power. Now, I don't know that you were directly involved. That's Greg Nybert down in Roswell, his effort. But just looking at the legislature and spending time with these folks and seeing repeatedly in numerous sessions that there's been an effort to put the legislature, institutional viability and equality with the governor on these emergencies. And the Democrats up there have refused to even push the bill through a single committee in all 4 of the sessions, 2 specials, 2 regulars, on these emergency orders. What's the deal there? Why are they so unwilling to move on that?
Okay, so I'm glad you asked me that because I'm extremely blunt and I'm not even going to sugarcoat this.
All right.
What happened with this was a great bill. I'm fully on board with this. She should not have that much power. Nobody should have that much power. And I don't care if they're Republican, Independent, Libertarian, Democrat. Nobody should have as much power as they have in this Constitution. So when they brought this forward, I thought, this is great. And Representative Eli was on board, Democrat. So apparently what I heard last session was that they were on board and we had the votes to get this through. And guess what happened? They got pulled into a back room. They got speaking to, and they all backed off. And that's the absolute truth of what happened with this. And we have continued to bring this forward. And unfortunately, I wish that how do I put this politely? I wish that our moderate Democrats would realize that they have more power than what they think they have and start speaking out.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like something that is so commonsensical, and with Damon Eli, who's no one's idea of a moderate Democrat on board, and having consistently been to his credit, that they would at least be willing to push it through the committee process, make some amendments, have a robust conversation. But it just went, boom, every single first committee. All right, well.
By the way, he also got on board with my recall bill.
I
wouldn't say on board. I would say he was open to it when I brought it forward, and he voted it through committee. He said, you know what, this is an interesting concept. He understood that I meant this for Republicans, Democrats, or anybody. Should be able to recall. We should be able to we cannot recall legislators.
Well, talk about the recall process as you put it. And this is a bill that you sponsored. So, a lot of votes happen, and that's how you get a score in the Freedom Index. But introducing bills, and especially as a minority, as a member of the minority caucus up there, it's a challenge. And trying to get elected officials, I don't know, was it the governor? Was it anybody? Who could you recall under this act?
Okay, so right now, what I saw since I'll use the governor for example. Since she was elected, there was people that tried to do this recall petition. That isn't how it worked. We don't have recall. You can recall people on like city and county commissioners. That you can recall city councilors, county commissioners, but you cannot recall legislators, and you cannot recall Secretary of State, statewide seats, governor, and that is not fair. I was actually quite surprised. So I brought this bill forward to make it a level playing ground that everyone should be able to recall. If you're not doing a good job and the people are not happy, they should have a process to take someone out of that position instead of having to wait 4 years to get them out of there. So I brought this forward in the committee. It passed through the first committee, and it was off to judiciary. And what happened was we just ran out of time. So I'm going to bring it back. Eli said this is a very interesting concept. He would like to see this where it goes. He didn't say he was on board. I should take that back. But he did say that he'd like to see where this goes. I had some other Democrats that thought, oh, okay, this is okay. But we the people should have the ability to recall anybody at any time. Now, the impeachment process we do have, but you have to commit a crime. There has to be a crime, and it has to go through the Senate. So what I'm trying to do is bypass that and give this directly back to the people so that they have a process to recall individuals. And I think that's something we should have in the state.
Yeah, I agree with you. And just for those keeping track, that is HJR 12.
Yes.
That was recalling elected officials. And you were a co-sponsor of terminating states of emergency HB 40
yes.
with Representative Nybert. He's been so associated with that for the last few years
yes.
As the lead sponsor. Of course,
yes.
Damon Eli as a Democrat. It's hard to keep track of all the different people involved. So let's move on and talk about the budget. Obviously, we at the Rio Grande Foundation are of the firm opinion that $1 billion increase, about a 13.5–14% increase in the budget is way too big. What are the highlights and or lowlights, mostly, I presume, of this budget as passed?
Okay, so when I got the budget, and I'm sorry I didn't bring it in because it's huge. It's a big, monstrous pile of paper. And so what happens is these things get amended right up until the very end, and then they get plopped on your desk, and now there's a 3-hour debate over it. So I get that just the same time everybody else does. I flipped through it. I started to scan through it as best as I could. The thing that was extremely frustrating was the $1 billion. I don't know why we are throwing money around when we literally don't have the money. A lot of the COVID relief money, yes, we have that spare money right now. We have some extra money from other sources, but next year, guess what we're not going to have? We're not going to have $1 billion, especially when we're trying to get rid of oil and gas where we're getting all our money. So next year, let's see what's going to happen. We're $1 billion over. A lot of that is reoccurring. Oh, we're going to have to start taxing the people. Somebody has to pay for this. So I absolutely disagreed with that. And then the $10 million for charging stations. Why and where and who is this benefiting? The elite that can afford an electric car? Oh, and we don't have enough electricity this year to supply Albuquerque, so we're going to have massive brownouts this summer. So it's going to be fun times for the Green New Deal in process.
We'll get to that. I know you're moving on. You're moving on, but that's okay. Yeah,
I'm fired up for 9 a.m.
That's all right. Got your coffee. Okay, so yeah, a lot of money. Free college was one of the other provisions.
Free college at $75 million a year. I brought up my husband had a family. He had a wife. He had 2 kids. He was working full time. He worked at INL, the lab up there in Idaho. They had a program where he could get a bachelor's degree through them. He worked so hard. It took him 12 years to get his master's degree. I don't understand why everybody else can't do the same. Mm-hmm. So what is going to happen, by the way, sorry, tangent, free college. What are we going to do if everybody starts to decide, I'm going to go back to school, and you seriously wanted to get a degree in engineering and all the classes are full because it's now free? How is this going to all play out? So I see so many problems with this. We're a state that doesn't have a lot of money. We're trying to get rid of oil and gas that pays for our school, but now we're not going to have any way to pay it. So I anticipate they'll have $75 million the first year. Next year we won't have any money. So what will we do? Increase taxes.
Well, before we get to increasing taxes, one of the provisions in the tax cut bill that was HB 163,
yes,
the gross receipts tax reduction. Now, there's a lot of good things to like, and I'd love to hear your opinions. But one of the provisions in that tax cut bill, the gross receipts tax, is tied to revenues being not lower than 95% of where they are currently, as I understand it. So if you see a 5% revenue decrease,
yes,
the reduction from 5.125 to 4.875 goes away.
Yes, that's what it says right in here. I was just reading this morning.
Right.
I was getting angry, and I was like, "Wait, we're going to it's." So first of all, we go back to shall or may instead of shall. So that means these things may happen, they may not. It's not a guarantee. This GRT thing is kind of a joke. It's like, okay, we're going to get this small reduction unless we start losing the money, then it comes back. Like you said, there were good things. This was my favorite, was providing a temporary income tax exemption for military retirement. We've been fighting that for a long time. Of course, it's temporary.
Right.
And
five years.
Yes. And then when we find out that didn't work, I'm sure that they'll change it. And then, of course, also the exempting the Social Security income tax, but that was for people up to $100,000. So there were some good things, and nurses' credits were good things. But then here's what they do. We get a bill. I try to make my bills as straightforward as possible. I didn't say recall and then add in tax exemption and all this other weird stuff that had nothing to do with it. I like bills that are straightforward. The bills I get, you go, oh, that's good, that's good. Oh, that's horrible. Oh, this is good, this is good, this is horrible. This is a great thing, giving the exemption to military retirement and Social Security. And then some of the other stuff, I'm like, yeah, we should just abolish GRT anyway, so that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, that would be the thing I would choose to do if we had the if we had the opportunity. It's not pretty much going to happen with the current group in power, so that's up to us all to make sure that Stefani has some support in Santa Fe when next session comes around. It'll be a 60-day session, but it will also be after an election, which will have a House of Representatives up as well as the governor and statewide offices. So it's a very critical election, and I think a lot of people are hopeful that we will have a more balanced, if not more ideologically conservative legislature.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. Actually, when I'm finished here, I'm having a meeting. We've been trying to find really good candidates to run in Bernalillo County. So we have 10, and we're hoping some of those are actually winnable seats because I'm tired of being in the minority. I want, if nothing else, I'd at least like it closer so that people can't throw these ridiculous bills at us that do not represent New Mexico. New Mexico is not progressive. It is not. There are probably more moderate Democrats than anything else in the state, and we need to bring it back to the middle. And that side has gone so far off the deep end that I'm hoping we should have a good election. I thought that last time too. It didn't pan out, but I'm really hoping this year. I'm really hoping we can get a better governor candidate in there and bring back some balance to New Mexico because it's gone way too far off the rails, and I hear a lot of people complaining about that. So.
Yeah, and let's insert kind of. There's always gossip, and gossip is.
Ooh, let's talk about
fun.
the gossip.
So obviously, the House new Speaker Brian Egolf, keeping it, realizing that this is a PG at worst show. Can you talk about Brian Egolf for a few minutes and his leadership as you've seen it over the last 3 years?
Well.
Sorry, Stefani, I know.
I'm cracking myself up because, first of all, when he announced at the end, I didn't realize he was announcing, and then everybody goes, "Shh, he's announcing," and I ran out there, and I saw he was announcing. Everybody stood up, and I walked out because I was like, "Bye." I'm not a fan of Brian Egolf, and he's not a fan of me, and that's totally fine. We're at the polar opposites of our belief system, and I will just say, allegedly, he's not a very fair or nice person behind the scenes, and allegedly he is kind of a bully, and allegedly some people were happy to see him go.
Okay. Well, I think
How's that for PG
we
and
can-
legally safe?
we can at least get past some of the allegedly and say that, and I'll say this so you don't have to. HB 132, the high interest loan issue, where he got that introduced on a lie essentially by putting a appropriation on it to make it germane for the 30-day
Yes.
session, and then pulling that out
took
in the
it
first
off?
committee.
Yes.
And then throwing Debbie Armstrong. What was Representative Debbie Armstrong's? She was dealing with something and she wasn't sitting in on committees, and then suddenly she miraculously parachutes onto the House Judiciary Committee
yes,
in time for that
that.
hearing.
So she's done. So she hasn't, she's
Right.
not running again. So
Right.
she hasn't shown up. She's just kind of been there, floating head up. And she hadn't even shown herself on the Zoom meetings until that happened. And then Speaker Egoff decided, we're going to put her in this committee, because he also threw in a committee because he was afraid there wasn't going to be enough votes
Right.
to vote something out that he didn't like. So he just used his discretion to do that. And one of the questions I brought up on the floor was, well, do we have that ability on the minority side to just move people around and put them in committees to get a vote we want? And the answer was, of course, no. So, yeah, he's a bit of a strong arm, and I'm hoping that next session we get. I want somebody who's fair up there. That's a very important seat. And being a bully and yelling at people and yelling at me when he wouldn't let me speak 2 times in a row, he wouldn't let me speak, and so he's not fair.
Okay. Well, with any luck, maybe you'll have a Republican speaker. That would be a big sea change up there. I'm
Yes.
old enough to remember back in 2015 and 16 when they did have the House under Republican control. Now, Georgine Lewis, representative who got a DUI right during the session, and do you think she'll run again? Where do you see that whole situation going?
I'm just going to speak briefly on that because, I got to go back to the alleged thing because that's, the whole alleged blah, blah, blah. But I really don't think she should have had the ability to vote. Their side was saying, well, she hasn't been convicted yet. But yet I've watched the video. I'm sure everybody watched the video. And it was very sad to see that whole thing. And the only real comment I'm going to make on it, it's unfortunate that she left an event and somebody didn't stop her.
Yeah.
That's my main thing. Somebody should have been looking out for her, and somebody should have taken her keys away from her, unless she slipped out. But the whole thing was unfortunate. That's all I'm going to say about that.
That's a fair enough thing. And the reason I brought that up specifically is because I was waiting in a Zoom meeting for committee SB 14, getting back to P&M as well. It's all connected somehow, but SB 14 was the clean fuel standard. It was one of the very worst bills in the session to increase gas prices by throwing ethanol into your gas tank and creating a cap and trade system. A lot of damaging aspects to that bill. And it had passed the Senate, and I was waiting in the last week of the session for a committee hearing to start with Georgine Lewis as the chair of the Indian Affairs and Government Committee. And I had to find out on Twitter from Dan Boyd that indeed she was not going to show up that morning because of the arrest. Now, that bill subsequently was amended in House Judiciary to include a 3-month extension of San Juan Generating Station.
Yes.
So I know those are 2 big issues, clean fuel standard and the San Juan Generating Station issue, but talk a little bit about those.
Okay, so the hydrogen hub, I want to go to that one, and then I'm going to tie it into the Clean Future Act. So I'm going to go to the hydrogen hub real quick. So that one was I did a lot of research. I called the very far progressive lefties. I called them. I called the professor at the University of Portland, University of Oregon, and he said, "You're a Republican calling me?" I go, "Yeah, I want to know what is the big deal about this hydrogen hub." So I learned this is a very expensive way to kind of make something look like it appears. It's going to be kind of greener, but it's really not. We don't always sequester and blah, blah, and they hated it. They told me they were going to vote MLG out based on this because they were frustrated with her. So then we go into... They were going to then, we don't really like hydrogen. This is too big of a deal. It died. Then they resurrected it. Then we were going to do it to keep San Juan alive. And that all fell apart because what they realized with this is that we're not going to have enough energy. The Green New Deal has failed miserably. And they brought forward this Clean Future Act, which was another nail in the coffin of some people on the other side saying, uh-oh, you know what? This green energy thing is not working out. We have killed our plant. We don't have enough energy. And then, what is his name? Small. Biggie Smalls. When he was talking...
The husband of the erstwhile member of the House of Representatives from Social Torres Small,
Yes.
just making 100% sure people understand they are husband and wife.
Yeah, they are allegedly. No, I... So he brought this forward, and he was just like, we've got it. It's the world's going to end. We have to push this through. And I'm so glad it went to 33-33 for the vote. And we were actually killed in the House. I was shocked. I was shocked. I was excited. I was almost in tears because this was going to ruin what we had. There was a thing in there about sequestering the methane from cows. It's a dairy cows, and we had to sequester their methane. I don't know how you do that. I don't want to know how you do that. But I was just like, this
Probably involves butts.
Yes, and I get it.
We'll leave it at that.
Look, I want a clean world. I don't want toxic stuff. But the problem is you can't come in using pure emotion. And here's the issue that I had the most on the far left side. It's pure emotion. Everything's emotion. We have to do this for social justice. We have to do this or the world's going to blow up. We have to, and they use all these buzzwords. But when you start digging with science, that's why I love the man who was one of the founders of Greenpeace and then left. He talks a lot about the realities of what the left is talking about and how we're all going to die here in 10 years. And so they don't want to hear that. But anyway, so that we were able to get rid of those two things. I was very happy to hear it. But we got to figure out what we're going to do with San Juan.
Right.
That's a big issue.
So let's take one step back. You mentioned
Sorry.
the Green New Deal. In practical terms, that was the Energy Transition Act of 2019.
Yes.
Which the governor and Democrats predominantly rammed through that is going to shut down San Juan Generating Station.
Yes.
And then in the Judiciary Committee, that amendment was added to put 3 months on the life of the San Juan Generating Station beyond its closure under the law in June of this coming summer, which of course is the middle of the hottest time of the year. And that's why P&M is concerned about not having the power. And, you know, it didn't get done.
Right.
Any idea? I noticed in looking through the list of Democrats who crossed over, a lot of them were Native American members of the House. Any idea, any speculation as to why they specifically crossed over?
If I had to guess, because that is in the four corners up there, there's a lot of Native Americans, I would assume, that work there, and it would put them back to work.
Okay.
So I would imagine that's a tie-in. Now, I had heard a rumor, and I don't know if this is true, that there may be some Native American vested interest in the plant itself, but I don't know that for sure. But I know the goal is to put people back to work, and that this Green New Deal that they've done is taking people out of work up there. And there's also another refinery they were talking about in, I believe, Gallup, that they're looking at bringing that to life. So that actually would bring them work. So that would be my guess.
All right. Well, that was certainly, among the various moments of the session that was really it crystallized the session in my mind. And to me, while I certainly love Bill Scher, it was great to see him out there doing his thing on the Senate floor. That vote as a tie really was the biggest moment of the entire session.
I agree. And I cannot tell you the emotions that welled up in me as I watched this, because I thought, this is going to destroy New Mexico and our livelihood and where we get our money. And this is going too far. I can understand if we were all sitting around, and here's half the problem with most of these bills. The bills we should have to have a round table with a bunch of experts on both sides, and we should all discuss this stuff.
Right.
Instead of just, getting a bill that most people don't even know what's in it, and they present it, and then we're trying to debate a bill that makes no sense. And that's, I think, the most frustrating thing. And I think this is what happened with this bill. They tried to go so far to an extreme that even the people are like, whoa, wait a minute. This is way too far. And a tax increase for anywhere from 20 to 50 cents. And then who was it? I don't even remember who it was. I don't know if it was Stansbury or the governor who put it's going to lower gasoline prices. And I took the California that was like $1 more
Mimi
than us.
Stewart. She was the sponsor to the bill in the Senate, yeah.
I was like, are you... Yeah, I think I was going to say something about the pot bill, but never mind. I'll just not say anything at that point.
Yeah, that is all true. HB 6 was one of the bills that the governor before the session really was pushing, and it didn't really go anywhere. This is the net zero bill. By 2030, we're supposed to have half the carbon emissions as a state that we did in 2005.
Again.
By 2050, zero carbon emissions on net for the state. But it didn't really go anywhere. And this is the second session for that bill. What do you think happened there?
I think, again, look, rural New Mexicans and the people of the state, I have heard feedback from this of, okay, if we're all supposed to have zero emissions and we're all supposed to have electric cars, who's buying me this car? Who's going to maintain this car? Who's buying me the battery for this car? And what if I don't want this? What if I want to drive a gasoline powered? So I think there's a lot of blowback from the people. And remember, this is an election year. You can present stuff and ask people, well, let it die.
Yeah.
Don't bring it forward. I tried, but they wouldn't let it. So there was a lot of that where bills went off to a committee and didn't go anywhere. And I think a lot of it had to do with, well, we tried to do this, but, those mean people wouldn't let it through.
All right. Well, we are not towards the end, but we're definitely at the end of the beginning. So we have to kind of get to the last big issue, which I think as a single issue probably spurred as much grassroots activism and concern as any. And I'm talking, of course, about the voting rights bills that were introduced. They were Senate bills, but they, of course, were making their way through the House process as well. As originally created, SB 8 was Looney Tunes stuff.
That was crazy.
So talk about voting rights and kind of the red herring that whole issue became.
Okay. I was horrified when I saw, I think it was the 8. I can't confuse.
Yeah, the original bill, it would have had ballots and mail-in collected till after Friday election.
Oh, yeah, like, and the thought process in this is some people just don't have time to get to the post office, and I'm like, who doesn't have time to get to the post office? But there was a lot of arguments that didn't make any sense on that bill. Letting 16-year-old vote, no. There was something about unattended ballot boxes, which I'm horrified in. Like my district on Las Placitas has got a ballot box just sitting there waiting to be stuffed. There was so many things wrong with that bill, and I think people were just completely up in arms because whenever I go and speak to people, they're very worried about is their vote being counted and counted correctly. Then they brought forward 6, which had the support of, I think, 30 out of 33 of the county clerks. It was okay. It had some good stuff about voter cleanup. It wasn't all the way there, but I understand we have to put things through in chunks. And I think, if anything else, people at home, you need to realize we can't always get bills through in their entirety, so you put a foot in the door. You say, okay, we're going to start with this, and then next year we're going to expand on it. That's what the other side does, and that's what we try to do as well. And then they took SB 144, and that was a disaster. They just threw everything. It was like, let's throw in the kitchen sink. Let's throw in a spaghetti recipe. Let's just... I got this thing, and I'm like, no, I quit counting after about 350. I think I got close to 1,000 emails. Please vote no on this. And thank God for the senator who I learned about hot dogs and trees, and he filibustered and fishing, and he just got up there and spoke for 2 hours and 45 minutes, and that was great. So yeah, I'm glad that died. I hope never to see that again unless it's actually some real stuff about cleaning up voter rolls and doing some sensible things about our voting issues. Of course, I like blockchain voting, but that's another topic.
Well, there you go. Throw some blockchain voting in, and you got it. That of course, originally SB 8 was 16 and 17-year-olds voting, and I was in the first. I testified in the first committee and against that, and it was amazing how radicalize the activists on that. If you oppose 16 and 17-year-olds voting, you're supporting Jim Crow and you're a racist. It was like, what does that even have to do with anything? And I actually testified that 16 and 17 was too high, that they should allow 10 and 11 and 12-year-olds to vote because my daughters are 9 and 12, and they are probably more informed than the average person out on the street. So why not have that? Just to take the absurdity of their claim. 18 is an arbitrary number. So is 16 and 17. Yeah. So would 10, 11, and 12. But there has to be an arbitrary number unless we institute some kind of civics exam for people to be able to vote. And that would be that would also be racist.
Okay, here we go with counterpoint. They were talking about in a lot of the bills how we should not really place fines and fees or conviction times for anybody under the age of 19 because their brain isn't fully developed. So which is it?
Right.
Are the brains not fully developed at 19 and we shouldn't prosecute anybody? Or are at 16 are they fully developed to vote? You can't have it both ways.
Speaking of which, the crime bills, the governor kind of seemed to come around on certain crime issues, but the legislature, by and large, did not, Democrat-controlled legislature. What was your take on the crime bill situation? Did anything get solved, or is it just a kind of a bleh?
Thank you. Meh. Okay.
All right.
So I actually presented bills like 3 strikes, you're out. Certain people that are super violent offenders, and we can show that should not be released on bail. I wanted to bring bail back. I want a constitutional change to do that. We wanted to stop the smash and grab. There's all kinds of things. I presented all kinds of bills specifically for that. None of those were considered. So what they did is they took HB 68, which started off as a horrific bill that made everybody under the age of 19 a felon with a gun, and if you're in the gun zone, a felon. So if you were walking, you're a mom, you're walking your kid to a park, and you have a gun on you and walk through that zone, you don't know it, boom, you're a felon. So that was ridiculous. They took that out. It was okay. They made the fleeing from a police officer was really good. There was a few good things in there. And then they brought it back. It was 10 pages. It was 5 sections. It got brought back to me, I think, at 3 a.m. With 95 pages and 53 sections. Some were okay. Some they actually lowered the penalties. It is absolutely, this is the main thing I want everybody to get out of this. It is absolutely absurd to take a bill, make it into a completely different bill with no public commentary. Nobody had any say-so in any of that stuff. So Ryan Lane sat next to me and he dissected the whole bill for 3 hours straight. And that's the best way to do it. I don't think at any time should you do things in the middle of the night when people have no commentary on it.
Yeah, and I know you don't control the process up there, but boy, it is interesting. It's a tale of 2 sessions because in the beginning you get a lot of public testimony. Hearings generally start on time. And then by the end of the session, and I know you know this better than anybody, you're at 3 a.m. Hearing bills, and there's of course no testimony in committees at the end. Even as a member, I'm sure they're giving you daggers for even talking in committee because they want to just railroad these things.
I love poking them because I want to ask questions about these bills, and it also the people at home deserve to know. So here's what I would say overall. There were some good things in that bill, but to me it was all smoke and mirrors. Because I will not forget, and nobody should forget, that last year it was about letting sex offenders out on halftime. Bash brought forward a bill to let sex offenders out on halftime. That is the most absurd, ridiculous bill. They voted against my amendment this session when I said we shouldn't allow sex offenders and child rapists to have the benefits of getting one of the bills passed where they wouldn't have to pay full fines and fees and they get double time on all that stuff. No, sex offenders should not have that. Democrats voted, no, they should. I brought forth all kinds of bills that would actually do good and take our sex offenders off the street and child rapists off the street. And lo and behold, the Dems didn't think that's good. So I do not believe any of the crime bills that they brought forward were truly crime bills. It was all smoke and mirrors for re-election.
All right. Well, we are going to have to leave it there. Any last words, any way people should contact you if you want them to? Any further information you want to share before we wrap things up?
Yeah, if you want to learn more about me, you can go to Lord 2020. It's two websites. I still have my Lord2020.com and Lord22.com, and it has ways to contact me. Follow me on there because I'm always updating people. You can find me on social media at Lord4NM on social media and Facebook and Twitter. And if you have questions, reach out to me, even if you're not in my district, because I represent all the people of New Mexico.
And if you want to run for the House or the Senate, I'm sure Stephanie can help you out with that. If you want to join the madness,
if you want to join the madness
Santa Fe
and help us up there, if you've ever been thinking for running for office, we got very limited time left. But I'm trying to help the candidates because I really do want to see some good candidates get up there. So yeah, or if you got questions about stuff, reach out to me on social media or on my Lord2020 has or Lord22.com has got ways to contact me. But I'm here for the people.
Great. And if you want to check out that Freedom Index and how Stephanie voted on some of the most critical issues facing New Mexico voters in this session, check that out as well. And thank you for listening to this week's episode. Find all episodes at tippingpointnm.com or at the Rio Grande Foundation's YouTube and Rumble channels. Subscribe to this show at Apple, Stitcher, or have your Google Home play Tipping Point New Mexico. Thanks to Path 3 Marketing for producing this show.